Hello, today I'm going to talk about the tools that can be used in city planning and policy to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in transportation. Greenhouse gas emissions from transportation are largely the result of the United States systems and culture that subsidize driving personal vehicles. To reduce greenhouse gas emissions requires countermeasures that embrace systemic change in transportation and encourage people to use these systems. This presentation is broken down into 7 categories of broad methods for reducing greenhouse gases in transportation. Each broad method includes different specific policies with some examples. We have education and outreach, prioritizing efficient modes of transit, increasing capacity and comfort, safety, zoning and urban form, new development, and non-emitting technologies. The first section is education and outreach. Education and outreach are important because transportation other than single occupancy vehicles does not typically receive the same attention as a personal vehicle. The public may not be aware of what they can do to get from point A to point B without a car. An important step in encouraging people to use alternative modes of transportation is to make sure that they know how to. My first point on this is to increase awareness of modes of travel other than single occupancy vehicles. For example, Seattle, Washington has significant media to support a culture of bicycling in the city. Making maps easy to access is critical as many streets are not safe for people on bikes to use, and resources like Google Maps may not always consider this. Wayfinding on the ground is important too, so that it is easier to navigate, and this acts as small advertisements around the city. As I said, many people just may not be aware of the infrastructure that is there to serve their transportation needs. Having access to information that can easily get you started with biking to work or using public transit is necessary if you want many people to change their behaviors. Being able to change or improve your situation is also helpful. So in Seattle, businesses and neighborhoods can request bike racks, which may be installed without cost if certain criteria are met for the location. This approach is limited for biking due to its lack of accessibility, but the same tools can be used for accessible forms of public transit. If you are only providing information online, there is the barrier of having to seek this information out, which is why having outdoor wayfinding and in-person representation is also helpful. Next, you can use information resources to make non-vehicular travel accessible to all. Transit systems and mobility infrastructure often suffer from a lack of accessibility. When a city's infrastructure does not support accessibility to people of different abilities, it will face increasing challenges in getting people to use public transit or sidewalks. Another example from the Seattle metro area is the King County Transit Access Map, which allows people to map the accessibility of a route or area based on a range of criteria. In areas like Seattle with big hills, it may be easy to be deterred by non-vehicular travel, especially if your mobility is limited. This is an incredibly useful tool for helping people of all abilities to navigate the city. And while this is an excellent tool that most places don't have anything comparable to, there is the limitation that it does not inherently alter the challenges of mobility. Some neighborhoods may still have accessibility issues, and tools like this should be used in tandem with capital improvements that make mobility easier and safer. Additionally, promotion of public transit as a beneficial service is critical to fostering frequent use of public transit. The Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority has been using and advertising campaigns during the summer to encourage use of their commuter rail system for things other than commuting to and from work. Promoting the ways in which transit can be used to accommodate leisure through a region can significantly reduce vehicle miles traveled. Increased use of transit will bring amenities closer to connected locations in the future, which will further limit the need for personal vehicle travel. Additionally, promotions such as $10 weekend rail passes in the summer incentivize use through subsidization, similar to how low gas prices and free parking subsidize driving. Using these campaigns to highlight that driving is bad for the environment is helpful in encouraging people to seek other means of transportation. Campaigns can be effective in changing behaviors and altering perceptions, but cannot be a standalone policy, as the same people will still not have access to transit. In some cases, it may be unaffordable as well. Buses, trains, bike lanes, and sidewalks all have the capacity to move more people per hour in urban areas than a lane of single occupancy vehicles. As such, prioritizing these methods that are more efficient than using a personal vehicle can help to encourage use of more efficient methods and increase the speed of these forms of transportation as well. With more people using buses, trains, biking, or walking, there are more cars off the road, which reduces emissions on its own, but also less stop and go traffic reduces emissions from the vehicles on the road. Dedicated and shared bus lanes are one way of prioritizing efficient modes of transportation. In the Boston area, which is plagued by some of the worst rush hour traffic in the country, there has been increasing use of bus lanes, which are shared with people on bikes. The bus lanes all began as pilots and proved wildly successful. In Cambridge and Arlington, commutes were decreased by 5 to 10 minutes, which travelers reported as feeling like nearly 20 minutes of saved time. This has led the MBTA to begin installing them in neighborhoods across the city and in dense suburbs. This method requires relatively low cost improvements, but involves gaining public support and enforcement. After installation, seeing the bus moving faster than traffic may encourage more people to take the bus instead of drive, but ensuring the bus lane is protected requires enforcement by police. Conflicts between cyclists and the bus may also create tension, but in the case of Boston, these were largely diffused. Bus rapid transit is reminiscent of dedicated bus lanes, but incorporates more infrastructural improvements and a higher level of prioritization. There are many systems described as bus rapid transit which don't meet all the criteria set out by the National Bus Rapid Transit Institute. BRT, which is bus rapid transit, must have dedicated lanes, be in the center of the road, have off-board fare collection, have intersection priority so that cars are not conflicting with the BRT lane, and they must have platform level boarding for accessibility. BRT is popular around the world, but many don't meet all 5 criteria. These criteria establish BRT as a method of transit that is efficient at a level comparable to trains or light rail. Off-board fare collection significantly reduces boarding and exiting time. Dedicated lanes, intersection priority, being in the center of the road significantly reduce conflicts with other traffic. Bus rapid transit requires more significant capital improvements than a dedicated bus lane, which can hinder its implementation. Additionally, the requirement of center lane travel necessitates safe crossings for pedestrians, otherwise few people will want to use it. If a city cannot implement all the criteria that make bus rapid transit effective, its success will be impacted. Giving bikes a share of the road encourages the use of bikes. The sense of safety bikes receive from bike lanes is important for encouraging non-vehicular travel. As exemplified here, bike lanes can also be made a more attractive option with streetscape greening and proximity to the sidewalk and buildings. Improving connectivity for cyclists also helps to get people to public transit if their commute is too long for just biking. Infrastructure that allows for mode changes greatly improves connectivity across the board. Other elements of bike lanes, such as turning boxes at intersections, help bikers to feel like they have an equal share of the road and emphasize their right to be there. Installing bike lanes can face political obstacles where drivers who have been given dominance over the road for so long feel they are having something taken away. Additionally, bike lanes need to be well planned and safe, otherwise people will be less willing to use them. Lastly, for prioritizing efficient modes of transportation, improving intersections to move the prioritized modes of travel is useful. Many intersections prioritize cars and require people to wait a long time for them to cross a hostile space on their walk signal. Shortening cycle lengths allows for more responsive walk signals and less waiting time for pedestrians, maintaining the efficiency of sidewalks. Extending the walk cycle can also help more people to cross in high foot traffic areas. Cities like Cambridge, Massachusetts have instituted bike lane signals that allow cyclists to get a head start on traffic so that they don't have to contend with turning traffic. Other cities in the country have allowed buses to briefly extend green lights to get through an intersection without having to wait 1 to 2 minutes for the next cycle. In some cases, just reducing the hostility of the intersection can make it more welcoming to pedestrians. At Worcester's Kelly Square, a notorious intersection with few signals and insufficient pedestrian access measures, a new redesign has significantly reduced the amount of pavement pedestrians have to cross. Additionally, the reduction of pavement reduces traffic speeds and again makes the intersection less dangerous. While moving pedestrians through an intersection improves and may attract more walking, this should be done with other projects that support walking. Otherwise, a city may just be increasing how much traffic there is at a given intersection. The next general approach for reducing greenhouse gas emissions involves increasing the capacity and comfort of public transit. Driving personal vehicles is a behavior deeply embedded in American culture, with its convenience being in many cases unmatched. Transitioning from a climate-controlled vehicle with your favorite music playing that takes you all the way from point A to point B to public transit can be a tough shift. By increasing the capacity of public transit and thus its overall comfort can be an attractive addition. In Zhuzhou, China, they've begun to use autonomous rail rapid transit, which incorporates the best parts of multiple transit modes. It is high capacity like a train, is electric and self-driving, and does not require any tracks. The ART, as it's known, can carry over 150 people and has priority on the road. Having an attractive form of transit like this that drives along the same route as other cars is an easy way to demonstrate the convenience of public transit, which can make it more attractive to former drivers. Similarly, articulated buses, which have a center joint that allows them to make sharp turns, greatly increases the capacity on bus routes without having to run trips more frequently. These can carry around 100 people depending on their design. This articulated bus in Amherst, Massachusetts, where the college has subsidized the bus and thus it's free. Students taking the bus to class place a high demand on the system, and this allows them to get to class while also providing for capacity for regular transit users who benefit from the free commute to work and not having to pay to park at their destination. These types of transit cost $1 to $3 million for just the vehicle, which can be cost prohibitive for some. Increasing space for pedestrians allows for safer and more equitable approach to streets. Having increased pedestrian space encourages people to walk. Not only does it increase capacity for walking to an extent, but makes the sidewalk more welcoming. The top picture here is in Chicago, showing what is known as a snack down. Following a snow event, cars leave a visible trail of where they drive and where they do not. This demonstrates that not all of the road is really needed for cars and allows for reclamation of portions of the street for pedestrians. The picture below that is in Memphis, showing the type of tactical urbanism that might follow a snack-down analysis. This provides extension to curbs and allows for safer crossing for pedestrians. Related to prioritizing efficient modes of transit, especially in extending pedestrian space, is to make biking and walking safer. On many streets, pedestrians and bikers have little buffer between them and the street. Wide lanes allows for cars to travel fast, increasing the risk of fatal car accidents. Taking measures to give non-vehicular travel a portion of the street and limit the threat of conflicts with traffic is a crucial tool. If people feel safe walking or biking, they will be more likely to do so. Many streets are not accessible for non-vehicular travel because of a lack of infrastructure and safety measures that protect people outside of vehicles. A basic step in this approach is to support complete streets. Complete streets treat all modes of travel equally, not just considering the percent of the road people have, but safety measures, aesthetics, convenience, and other elements that ensure high-quality experiences. For example, beyond giving cyclists a dedicated shoulder space in the road, they may paint the bike lane another color, add bollards, or beautify the surrounding area. Buffers help to protect cyclists and pedestrians from high-speed traffic and also create a wider area for travel. Calming traffic can be done through many means. Car lanes are often designed for higher speed than the road is limited to, which actually encourages people to drive faster. Reducing road width can help slow traffic, while also adding things to the street, especially on straightaways, can help discourage speeding. Pictured here in Toronto is a chicane, which is a bump out, often vegetated, which is meant to calm traffic and improve safety, necessitating attention and care in driving. Streets that people are being protected on should connect people to places. This is not a solution for every street, but should be a consideration wherever there are people. Many of these measures related to the physical makeup of the streetscape, and one of the most critical tools for that is zoning. Zoning can be used to determine many dimensional requirements and allowed uses in an area. The way zoning forms the urban environment can encourage walking or public transit through density and keeping people close to amenities, limiting the need to drive longer distances. Walkable development refers to a level of density at which people would be comfortable walking, as well as a streetscape which is welcoming and capable to handle high foot traffic. Walkable development often has limited to no setbacks for buildings, meaning that buildings are built all the way up to the sidewalk. This encourages engagement between businesses and the public and deters parking in front of the business. Front parking encourages driving, as drivers can be certain there is parking as it's visible from the road. Uncertainty about the available parking discourages drivers and can encourage walking or public transit, both of which have a smaller carbon footprint per person. Mixed uses allow for people to live closer to amenities and also increase density, increasing the number of people close to jobs and amenities, limiting the need for vehicle travel. Prioritizing walking is also done in places such as Church Street in Burlington, Vermont, which is a car-free street that includes retail, services, offices, and apartments. Pedestrians may also be welcomed by having an interesting streetscape that allows for relaxation or play. The movable and stackable furniture pictured here in Seattle allows people to sit, but also build their own street furniture. Some places lack a precedent for increasing density or walkability. In many places, you need substantial public support for zoning changes. For example, in Massachusetts, you need a 2/3 vote to change the zoning. Where increased density to the point of walkability may not be suitable, such zoning changes may not be the best approach. Nonetheless, walking infrastructure should still be supported. Policies that establish requirements for new development can be utilized to ensure that bike and pedestrian connectivity is supported in newly developed areas, and or that there is access to public transit. In less dense areas, developers may establish subdivisions that are disconnected from transit and amenities, almost necessitating personal vehicles for travel. Traffic mitigation requirements can involve a fee to support public traffic mitigation, or some cities may allow bike or pedestrian infrastructure in lieu of a fee, such as improved sidewalks in front of the property or a new bike path connector. Subdivisions may also be required to meet certain standards, such as having sidewalks. In Northampton, dead-end streets, which when newly developed may be the result of a subdivision, are required to have some bike or pedestrian trail off the dead end. Pictured is the Village Hill development in Northampton, which has a trail off the road in the gap between the houses on the loop pictured. Other cities may have set impact fees on a schedule based on things like building size. This table shows the impact fee for new development in Boulder, Colorado. A certain portion of the fee is dedicated to transportation, which is based on the demand that a given development places on the transportation system or road infrastructure. A limitation of this approach is potential impacts on demand for development. Where requirements or cost of developing is too high for sufficient return on investment, then these requirements may deter development altogether. Finally, where the services may already exist or there is already demand for public transportation, using electric options helps to reduce the emissions of these already efficient modes. Boston's Green Line, the oldest subway in the country, is electric. The Pioneer Valley Transportation Authority in Springfield, Massachusetts, and transit authorities across the world have been adding electric buses. Additionally, where demand for personal vehicles is still high, increasing electric vehicle infrastructure can help people switch from combustion engines to electric vehicles. For example, Mass Autobahn has added electric charging stations to some of its properties, which are in areas that are more rural than would typically be served by public transit, allowing for low emissions transportation even though there is not public transit. These options present the issue of costs, where electric vehicles can often be expensive, especially to replace transportation that does the same thing. This system depends on electricity generation being clean as well. Otherwise, carbon emission sources are just changing, but less so the total emissions. Putting forward these policies is one thing, but actually implementing them is the challenge. There are a few things a city can do to encourage projects or policies intended to reduce greenhouse gas emissions for transportation. First, engage the public. A robust public process can help to build political support for new transportation infrastructure or services and overcome barriers. This can also be used to educate people on the impacts driving has on climate change and what can be done to mitigate emissions. Another thing is hire a transportation planner. If the locality has the resources to hire another planner, it could be incredibly beneficial to have a staff person that dedicates their time to this. If a dedicated transportation planner may be too niche, a sustainability planner may be a broader focus that still incorporates cutting down greenhouse gas emissions. For governments with fewer resources, regional partnerships may be more feasible, allowing for group efforts in developing transportation networks. Finally, apply for grants. The government can't afford every project they are going to want in place, but making the case for the project at state and federal levels could significantly improve the chances of obtaining funding that makes these projects feasible. Thank you. I hope this was an informative guide in greenhouse gas reductions in transportation. These are my sources for this presentation.